Thank you very much, Neil. I'd much rather stand up to start off with. Thank you very much, Neil, for that introduction, and it is very good to be here. Before I begin, friends and colleagues, all of you, how many people were actually in Ottawa in 2002? Anybody here was actually in Ottawa in 2002? Ah, three of us. I find that quite remarkable. It also puts a great responsibility on the three of us, because we should have been implementing what we decided at Ottawa. So you are the judges. That is what we're going to try to do in this session. We want to see how far we've come since Cairo, of course, but also since we happy friends and brothers and sisters actually met in Ottawa 16 years ago. How far has your country come? And Frederick and I are going to be actually moderating this session and asking questions of the speakers you see sitting on their chairs there. But before we do that, we have got, I couldn't see you. Before we do that, Rachel Snow, who is the Chief of Population and Development within the UNFPA, is going to tell us, you can read her biography, of course, on the pages in front of you, but she is going to give us an overall view of how this has happened globally. I hate that word globally, but we do need to think in those terms all the time. Rachel, look forward to hearing you.
Thank you, Baroness, honorable ministers and parliamentarians, Executive Director of UNFPA, colleagues and friends. So I've been asked to speak about where we came from and to remind us where we were in 1994 with some facts and figures, but particularly why Cairo mattered so very much. Excuse me. In many respects, Cairo was a point of resistance. And I think it's important to recall why women and governments were resisting and what they were resisting. Anxiety about the population bomb had been delivering family planning and pushing and funding family planning programs in many, many countries of the world, often as vertical services, with very little regard for the health of the women or for their rights. And part of what Cairo enabled was a resistance to those policies and a reflection on, in fact, what women actually needed. The International Decade of Women had only just closed in 1985 in Nairobi. And that had enabled two processes, one political and one factual, that are important to remember. The Decade of Women from 75 to 85 had enabled women's groups to meet in national groups, regional groups, global groups, on many occasions through the decade. And in this pre-internet world, in the pre-Google translation world, these meetings were critical for women to mobilize, to compare notes, and to discuss what was required. But factually, what culminated at the end of the decade for women in Nairobi was the first ever recognition that 500,000 women a year were dying in childbirth. And not only was that number sort of terribly important in itself, but I remember Adi Lucas speaking, who was with the Carnegie Foundation at that time, that in his own country of Nigeria, in fact, this was assumed to be the way life was. This was assumed to be normal. Death was so common in childbirth that it was a social norm in many regions of the world. And it took the global movement in the International Year of Women for people to realize, why, this is not happening in all parts of the world, this is only happening in some, and this is completely preventable. And out of that came, in 1987, the Safe Motherhood Initiative for the first time, the global initiative. Also, right on the cusp of Cairo, In 1992, Rani Bang in The Lancet had published a breakthrough study which talked about the reproductive morbidities that poor women in India were experiencing, and that was followed very quickly by the Giza study in Egypt, which once again said women were suffering from all kinds of reproductive morbidities, but with very little access to health care. If we think about FGM, and I'm not going to give the numbers of FGM, but to say it was only one country as we moved into 1994 that actually had a law banning FGM, and that was the Central African Republics. And in the course of 1994, both Ghana and Djibouti passed laws. Now, those laws have accelerated, and it's certainly not to suggest that the laws themselves have made a difference, a great difference in the world, and we will hear more about that in the next 2 days. But to remember, we were in a world where this was not illegal. This was many, many countries. This was not the case. Only about 1 woman in 5 used contraception in the least developed countries in 1994. Wow. But most critical, as the movements, the preparatory meetings happened before Cairo, what was coming out were stories of abuse and overzealous population control, overzealous family planning programs in many, many locations. Some of those were represented by large sterilization programs where women had very little other options. They also represented countries where implants were inserted for free, but if women wanted them out, they had to pay. And you had to pay more if you wanted it out sooner than if you waited the 3 to 4 to 5 years. And so women, of course, were digging them out of their own arms. These were the stories when I was coming up and Cairo was being prepared for. And that's why I say it was a conference which was mobilized in many ways because of moment of political resistance. The delegates in Cairo did change things, and I think that they changed the whole narrative. Within 2 years, 1996, for the first time, there were global published guidelines, which were called the Guidelines on Medical Eligibility for Contraceptive Use. But what was important is they were the very first standards which said, well, if the woman has diabetes, she should not get this product. If she has gonorrhea, she should be treated and not get an IUD inserted, for example. But it was not until 1996 that we had these global standards. We're now, I think, in the 5th edition of that publication. And people began to recognize good practices. It was noted that Thailand was doing very well with many, many, many methods of contraception being offered. So choice seemed to be useful. And in Bangladesh, there was a program to insert family planning inside the village health workers who were in fact offering maternal and child health, and they saw the trust rise in women and their interest in family planning also rise. In 1994 was a publication that it came from Sid Schuler, that if women participated in microcredit programs or any program that let them get out of the house, family planning was higher. So these questions of what does it mean to be participating in the public sphere became very, very crucially recognized. And it was only in 1995 that the global studies were published which said, if women are educated, even just a little bit of education, their children are healthier, the family is healthier, and they're more interested in family planning. And today that seems sort of remarkable that we have to revisit that. And it seems like common knowledge, but it wasn't common knowledge at the time. In the data arena, not only did we increasingly start to publish routine statistics on maternal death and family planning, but it would actually be 5 years before the demographic and health surveys started collecting a module on what was going on in the households. Did women have decision-making power? Could they have the right to refuse sex? And did they have the right to use contraception? 1999. Also in 1999 was introduced for the first time a module within the DHS to measure gender-based violence. And it wasn't till 11 years after Cairo in 2005 that the first global multi-country study was published on gender-based violence. So Cairo was special because it did grow out of resistance, but most important, the intelligence of the delegates there was to redefine the problem. And those who feared a population bomb, and they were many, of course, to this group, and honestly, of course, we know they are very much with us today, it was made clear that the demand for family planning and smaller families was very real, that women were very interested in this, but only when it was embedded within a broader commitment to women's rights, their education, their health care, the health of their children, their opportunities to work, to participate in microcredit, and when they had family planning embedded within the full, high-quality, integrated sexual and reproductive health care. So I'm going to close there because I think this is what I was asked to do, just to remind us of where we started. And in closing, let me just say that echoing the message of our executive director this morning, I think when we reflect where we were in '94, we can certainly say that Cairo changed laws, it changed policies, it changed opportunity, but most important, it changed the discourse. And that may be what's most important to us as we look forward. So I'll stop there. Thank you very much.
Now, the second part of this session, we have 5 very distinguished parliamentarians sitting to my right in these armchairs, and they are each going to be asked a question. First by me, I shall ask a question each, and then the Honourable Frederick will take over and ask another question of each of them. And it's all on the theme of what your area, what your country, what you even have achieved in this field in the last 16 years, even though you weren't at Ottawa in 2002. The first person I'm going to ask really doesn't need any introduction. She's one of the stars of these conferences, and she is very distinguished and leads the Africa Forum. The Honourable Marie-Rose Nguini-Effa, Member of Parliament from the Cameroon, President Forum of African Parliamentarians on Population and Development. Marie-Rose, looking back on 25 years of the ICPD programme of action, what has changed most in your country for the better in terms of sexual and reproductive health and rights?
Thank you.
Oh, and you have 2 minutes.
Only 2 minutes. Well, allow me to do it in French because of equity.
Give us just a moment to kit ourselves up. Okay.
Je peux? Can I?
Yep.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes, go ahead, Marie-Rose.
Oui. Depuis 1994, avec la CIPD, beaucoup de choses ont changé. Il y a déjà la reconnaissance et l'accent mis sur l'équité, la parité hommes-femmes, la santé, les droits en matière de procréation et l'adoption d'une approche santé en matière de procréation fondée sur les droits. Nous avons aussi constaté la reconnaissance des voix des femmes et la détermination des dirigeants à s'attaquer sans réserve aux inégalités, aux contraintes, aux obstacles spécifiques et aux enjeux de la santé sexuelle et reproductive, non seulement au Cameroun, mais également en Afrique. Et puis il y a le cadre politique continental pour la SDR qui s'est établi sur le continent ces 10 dernières années. Le plan d'action de Maputo, le Cameroun faisait d'ailleurs partie de la récente révision ayant abouti au plan d'action de Maputo 2016-2030. Et dont je parlais du protocole de Maputo et le protocole de la Charte africaine des droits de l'homme et des peuples relatifs aux droits de la femme en Afrique, adopté en 2003-2018, dont le 15e anniversaire d'ailleurs du protocole de Maputo, à son article 14 qui dispose que le droit à la santé des femmes, y compris la santé sexuelle et reproductive, soit respectée et promue. Tel est le cas aussi au Cameroun. Mais il y a la déclaration d'Addis Abeba sur la population et le développement en Afrique. Après, cette déclaration d'Addis Abeba est née au moment où la dynamique du cadre, l'après 2015, rassemblait tout le monde. Les pays africains dont le Cameroun se sont engagés à respecter 88 engagements axés sur les programmes visant à promouvoir la dignité, l'équité, la santé, la gouvernance, la dignité, comme je disais, la coopération internationale et le partenariat. Cette déclaration reconnaît également la santé et les droits en matière de santé sexuelle, en matière de sexualité et de procréation, non seulement essentiels à la réalisation de la justice sociale, mais sont également essentiels à la réalisation des engagements pris au niveau mondial, régional, national en faveur du développement rural. Je vais m'arrêter là pour le moment. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you, Mary-Rose. Our second speaker is the Honourable Martha Lucia Micher, is that how you say it? From Mexico. And I more or less the same question to you, Martha. Since the ICPD program started, what do you feel Mexico has achieved in the succeeding years?
Bueno, primero, muchas gracias por la invitación. Me siento muy orgullosa de estar aquí con ustedes y decirles que para mí es una gran felicidad anunciarles que ganamos en México, que ganó la izquierda y que a partir del 1 de diciembre gobernará por fin Andrés Manuel López Obrador, quien ha luchado por 20 años para ser presidente de la República. Yo soy de ese partido, soy del partido de Morena y me siento muy complacida de compartirles a ustedes que desde la izquierda, el movimiento feminista y el gobierno, incluso de no ser un gobierno de izquierda, que en aquel momento, en 94, lo encabezaba el PRI, México fue vanguardia en estas acciones en favor de la salud sexual y reproductiva, desde 1994. Sin embargo, se han dado pasos hacia adelante, pero también pasos agigantados hacia atrás. La derecha gobernó durante 12 años y se dieron grandes retrasos en relación a 3 temas fundamentales: el embarazo adolescente, la utilización de anticonceptivos y el derecho a decidir de las mujeres. Pero tengo las malas noticias y las buenas noticias. Las malas noticias es que aún a pesar de ser vanguardia México en las reuniones internacionales y signando documentos muy importantes México, también tenemos que reconocer que hemos tenido que, pues, una serie de políticas públicas que no han permitido a las niñas y a los niños, sobre todo a las niñas, planificar su familia. El embarazo adolescente en mi país se ha incrementado como nunca. Tenemos en los últimos 8 años 5 millones de niños y niñas nacidos de mujeres entre 10 y 14 años. Es decir, ha sido una política fallida, una política muy mala, y tenemos que direccionalizar, darle un nuevo rumbo a la política de prevención del embarazo adolescente. Pero la buena noticia es que en la Ciudad de México, desde 2008, 2007, tenemos una gran ley en la Ciudad de México, gobernada por la izquierda. Tenemos la interrupción legal del embarazo. Es el único estado de los 32 estados en mi país que tiene tipificado la interrupción legal del embarazo hasta las 12 semanas. Y han interrumpido su embarazo 194,153 mujeres de todo el país que acuden a la Ciudad de México a interrumpir su embarazo por ninguna razón. No necesitamos de saber si está en peligro la salud de la mujer, si hay malformación del feto, no. Simple y sencillamente solicitan la interrupción legal del embarazo de cualquier lugar, llegan y se les brinda el servicio. Ustedes saben que ahora es el uso del misoprostol, no hay intervención quirúrgica y eso es muy importante. Por eso creo yo que si bien México fue vanguardia, algunos gobiernos politizaron nuestros cuerpos, nuestros derechos, y entonces la ideología religiosa se implantó y por ello retrocedimos mucho. Pero a pesar de ello, ahora hay una estrategia para prevenir el embarazo adolescente e infantil. Vamos adelante y a partir del 1 de diciembre sabemos que tendremos políticas públicas en favor de esta prevención sin incorporar asuntos religiosos y trabajando por un Estado laico que responda y que respete los derechos humanos de las mujeres.
Thank you very much indeed, and that was very interesting. And it highlights the importance, I think, of one of the breakout sessions this afternoon on sex education. It's a subject very dear to my heart, and we've had a lot of problems with it in Britain. As you know, we had the highest teenage pregnancy rate in Europe. It's actually come down substantially over recent years. A lot is to do with education, a lot is to do with social media and spreading the message. But that was sad news that that's happened in Mexico, but tremendous news on what's happening in Mexico City. Very, very good news indeed. Thank you. Now, the next question is to the Honourable Hala Abou Ali, an MP from Egypt. And a lot of us are not familiar with what goes on in Egypt at the moment. We hear a lot of political stuff, but not much on social stuff. Can you tell us what is the most important thing to understand about your country in this context?
Well, good morning or good afternoon, given that we are in different time zones. And thank you for the invitation, and thank you for the question and giving me the opportunity to present a bit Egypt. And I will not focus on the national strategies and plans that exists on population and SRH and to combat early child marriage, but since most of us in the room are legislators, so I will focus on understanding the legislation in Egypt and what is the platform for SRH and what are the direct and indirect like constitutional articles and laws that may affect the SRH. So Egypt has a quite fairly new endorsed constitution that was endorsed in 2014. And in that constitution, actually, it refers to non-discrimination and equal opportunities. It also protects women against all forms of violence. It has an article that speaks about population issues that really translates and put very nicely the ICPD in is like into the heart of our constitution, and it criminalizes all forms of torture, violence, and like prohibits the gender discrimination and affirms that body's integrity, and it is forbidden to all action that harms it. So this can be made use of for to combat the FGM. And as also Nathalie has referred, is that in 1994, Egypt didn't have a law that criminalized FGM at that moment, but now in the penal code, FGM is a crime that is penalized, and since 2008, and even in 2017, we had a revision of the law was amended, and we are hoping that we will improve the prevalence of FGM. If we look at the numbers, we see that it has improved, but it's still very high. It lies up to a cumulative of 90% of the Egyptian women have endured FGM, actually. As for, if we look at child marriage, we also in Egypt, there is the personal status law has explicitly actually says that no marriage contract can be registered if the age of marriage is less than 18 years old. So it does not really prohibit the marriage, but the marriage is illegal. So still we are nowadays currently in Parliament talking about passing a law or amending the law in order to criminalize child marriage, and we hope that it will be more effective on the ground, because I guess in the following question we can talk about cultural issues and how we can really make the law more effective and not just progressive laws that do not translate into reality on the ground. Also, I guess it's very important that since the late 90s, the penal code to protect women against rape has been changed, because since 1937 it allowed that the raper or the perpetrator could marry the woman and escape the crime. But now the law does not allow that, which I think it's quite an achievement, and it was really further amended in 2017 to include not just rape but also all kinds of harassment. Sexual harassment is a crime. And I guess and maybe if 1 second, because to speak a little bit about abortion, which is very important to SRH, that abortion on demand is illegal in Egypt. However, access to safe abortion services under the law are still available if the woman is pregnant due to a rape, or the doctor feels that there is a danger on the health of the mother, then she can have a safe abortion. But it should be noted that the post-abortion care, including the provision of contraception to prevent further unwarranted pregnancies, is still inadequate, and I guess I'll stop here. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I just wanted very much to ask you how many prosecutions there have been for FGM in Egypt, because we have a law against FGM in the UK and we haven't had a single prosecution yet. And it's a very, it's a very difficult subject. Do you actually have prosecutions?
It's only you can count them on one hand. So not more than that. But usually when it happens, it's a big issue, and then we amend the law due to that. So in 2018 there was an amendment, 2014 another, in 2017 was another. Yeah. Each one is related to a court
I think
law.
All of us have got a big fight ahead still on this issue. I mean, there's no question.
Persons are not coming forward.
That's right. Well, they don't come forward, and they don't want to testify against their own family. This is the problem, I think. It's a family matter. But that will be discussed, I'm sure, in one of the breakout sessions as well. Now, my last question is to the Honourable Ermalena Muslim Hasbullah, who's an MP in Indonesia. And looking back at 25 years since the ICPD programme of action, what has changed most in your country for the better, do you think?
Yeah, this difficult and easy. I tried to explain a little bit back to the function of the parliaments.
Have you got a mic? Is your mic on?
Does it work?
Okay.
Does it work? Yeah. Back to function of the parliaments. Indonesia function of parliament, we try to prepare what we call is a legislation function. And as long as since the ICPD in the 1994, we are success to address the amendment the health bill and also the security health system. And in the security health system, there's a gift free for the all contraception. And secondly, for the children protection, we success to address the children protection bill. And one of the very important, we declare about the before the 18 years old, these still children and they can go to the marriage. And third, what the trafficking, and the fourth, population control, and also we had the domestic violence bills. This you submit through the parliament, but the problem is not easy like that because the parliament term is every 5 years. When the new parliamentarian coming, again we must explain what the goal is from the ICPD, and that's why some of the bills take time to pass in the parliament. And the second function of the parliament in Indonesia, this how to approve the budget. We are success approve the budget and put in the bills for the whole budget 5% for the total national budget. And secondly, we are success to address the budget for the education. We put the 20% from the total budget for education. What the mean is when we give the more money for education, if we open the challenge for our children come to the school, not drop out from the school. This also part of it, try to keep the children not young married. And what else is about the control of the government done or not done, the reach or not reach the goals. And we are not work only among the parliament, we also build what we call is advocacy programs. The advocacy program is, we try to advocate the member of parliament in the provincial level and the district level to develop the same thing what we develop in the national level. And they are together work with the community, especially work with the religious leader. I think maybe same with all of the Muslim country, a little bit difficult to discuss about the young marriage in the beginning. But now, every religious leader say, okay, young marriage is very danger because like this, like this, like this, like this. And how can we ask the religious leader talk like that? We ask them sit together with member of parliament, sit together with the local parliament, sit together with some of the what we call is expert people. That's why the advocacy is very important in the program. And secondly, what we call is the capacity building. This one is very difficult for the member of the parliament. Like I mentioned in the beginning, is a term of the member of parliament. Every 5 years, we change some of the member of parliament. Again, we must explain what the problem is, how dangerous if we not done like this. We take a time. That's why it's a function of the Indonesian Forum Parliamentarian Population and Development, like another forum, I think is very important. We prepare like a very simple like fact sheet. We explain what is ICPD, what the goal of the ICPD, why we need to reach the goals, and we explain every 5 years for new parliamentarian coming. Before we address some of the requests, what we must done through the parliamentarian. And number 3 is very important about networking. Parliamentarian background is different, not health background or not a business background all, but we need the information from the outside. What we call is we try build the networking with some expert from the outside the parliament. We bring to university coming, research and development coming to give what the realities now in the Indonesia, what the parliament must done to solve this problem. And the last one, this one is very important, communication and information. We need to continue the communication with the member of the parliament. Like today when I'm coming, I have homework. When I come to the parliament, I must open discussion with other parliamentarians. And especially for the young marriage problem, now all members of the parliament, especially for the health commission, we bring 3 fingers anywhere. 50 of the members of the parliament for the health commission, we bring 3 fingers to the field. We say no first, this no, we say no, early marriage. And second, we say no is no free sex. And the last one, no drug. This we bring to our constituent and we try to explain for our constituent, please. And we try to explain through we organize the simple meeting in our constituent, but all members of parliament come to the field, bring 3 fingers in Indonesia. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed. That was very interesting. And of course, I don't think you mentioned is Indonesia's statistics in this field have actually improved hugely over the last 20 years. That's right, isn't it? Family size and all of those things.
Yeah, family size now is more better because they say it's two children enough. That's right. Now. Yeah.
Well done. And finally, someone else who doesn't need any introduction. Ulrika is Member of Parliament, was a Member of Parliament in Sweden, but unfortunately lost her seat recently. But she's been President of the European Parliamentary Forum for the last 3 years. I think you took over from me, was it 3 years ago?
No, it's 3 years ago.
It says 3 years ago. I can't believe it's 3 years has gone already.
Quick.
But tell us, Ulrika, what's been happening in Sweden? Model country.
A model country, yes, in many ways. I would say that SRHR, sexual reproductive health and rights, are the cornerstone in Sweden, I would say, in human rights, because if you don't have the access to your own body and the right to decide upon your own body, your own life, and your own future, you have nothing. We can talk about human rights, the right of expression, the freedom of expression, and all the other human rights, but if you can't decide of who to marry and when to marry, then the other rights doesn't really matter, because if you're married off when you're 4 years old, you don't have any freedom in the whole in your own life. So I say it's a cornerstone in Sweden in human rights. But it has not always been like that. We have done a journey in Sweden over the last, I would say, 100 years. When you look at maternal mortality, 100 years ago, we had one of the highest maternal mortality rates in the world. And today, we have one of the lowest. And I would say that is an example that you can actually change if you put an effort into it. And Sweden, role model or not, but Sweden is there as an evidence of what you can do to change. If you put the focus on midwives, if you have youth clinics, if you have access to contraceptives, if you have access to legal and safe abortion, if you have access to sexuality education for each and every boy and girl in school, and education for women and women in the labor force, and you have inherited rights for women, and you have parent leave when you have children, etc., etc. That is an example that you can do it if you want. And I would say that Sweden is also an example, and you can use this in the debate back home if you want, to push it forward, because Sweden is a good example when you give women choices, when you give her choice to choose herself about her life, it brings economic growth to the country, it brings better health for the population, it brings longer life for people, it brings a happier population, and also high fertility rate. We have one of the highest fertility rates in Europe, and we have the longest parent leave, and we have the most women in the labor market. So use it as an example, because sometimes I think if we can't talk to the heart, it's good to do this. Talk to the brain. It's good for the economic to do this, I would say.
I broke into applause then, because it's the first time this morning that someone has mentioned that giving women their sexual and reproductive rights and allowing them the choice of how many children they have and how they run their own lives not only benefits them, but it benefits the country, it benefits the country's economy, it benefits everyone in the thing. And I think we mustn't lose this. It's a terrific emphasis, because it's the greatest selling point to a lot of politicians, certainly in my country. Yes. It's the greatest selling point.
And to say, and to be honest about it, it's stupid not to.
Yes.
It's
a
bad.
Waste of resource. Yeah. It's a waste of half the population.
Well, just to make one small point when it comes to FGM, because you discussed this, FGM, we have changed the legislation over the last years in Sweden. It used to be like that. You have to go to court, you have to prosecute between 10 years. After 10 years, it's too late, because it's total crime. And that started from when the crime was committed. And if the girl was 4 years old, who wants to do that when you're 8 or 10 years old to prosecute your parents or whatever? So we changed the legislation. It starts when you turn 18 now, the time. So from 18 to 28, you can go to court. I think that's important because no child will go to court prosecuting her parents, but you can do it as a grown-up.
Okay. Thank you very much indeed. Now I'm going to hand over to the Honourable Frederick Stephenson from St Vincent and the Grenadines. Sounds looking outside at that grey, cold Ottawa. You make me think of palm trees and warm sand.
and nice white sand beaches and blue skies and the sun. But we are now into the hurricane season in the Caribbean. And when I left St Vincent and the Grenadines, we had rains for the last 4 days. In Trinidad and Tobago, we have extensive flooding. Parts of Trinidad and Tobago in the Caribbean has been cut off due to the heavy rainfalls that we've been having. We have not had any major hurricanes in the Caribbean region this year so far. We're still in the hurricane season, but we have to be grateful that like last year with Erika and the others, major storms which caused devastation in our region. I want to thank our 5 distinguished panelists for that first round of discussions. I think we need to give them a round of applause. We move into the second part of the panel we're having this morning, or this, yes, it's just about 12 o'clock here in Canada, if my watch is correct. We're going to start again with the Honorable Mary Rose. I don't know how to pronounce this name. I was told once you have to pronounce all the letters in the African name. So,
Nguini-Effa.
Nguini-Effa, I thought so. The MP for the Cameroon and President of the Forum for African Parliamentarians. Minister, can you, looking back over the years, can you tell us if there have been any major accomplishments or areas where progress has been slow or taken too long in terms of the sexual and reproductive health and rights?
Okay. Merci. Il y a eu plusieurs choses qui étaient, enfin, des bonnes actions, mais il y a aussi eu beaucoup de mauvaises. Je commence peut-être par les mauvaises. Au Cameroun, par exemple, l'avortement n'est toujours pas autorisé. Le caillou dans notre chaussure, c'est l'emprisonnement des personnes soupçonnées d'homosexualité. Emprisonnement ferme. On a encore quelques problèmes avec les pratiques néfastes, les mutilations sexuelles et génitales. Nous avons encore un peu de repassage de sang dans certains endroits. Ça, ce sont vraiment les choses qui sont très mauvaises et qui n'ont pas encore trouvé de solution, mais qui sont en voie d'amélioration. Pour dire ce qui a eu de bien, c'est un peu l'inscription dans le budget de l'État d'une ligne pour le sida dans le budget de chaque ministère. C'est une ligne spécifique dans le budget pour les préservatifs. C'est aussi la loi électorale qui fait obligation à chaque liste de candidature qu'elle soit mixte. S'il y a une liste de 4 personnes, il faut 2 femmes, impérativement 2 femmes, 2 hommes. Et puis nous avons, à cause, vous savez que la population africaine est très jeune, nous avons aussi cette importante feuille de route de l'Union africaine sur le dividende démographique qui reconnaît que les jeunes sont la priorité principale et la nécessité de passer à l'échelle pour transformer l'Afrique. Et le Cameroun fait partie de applique cette feuille de route de l'Union africaine. Donc voilà. Merci, des bonnes choses et des mauvaises choses. Mais On espère que ça va changer un jour, qu'on ne va plus emprisonner les personnes et qu'on va arrêter d'interdire l'avortement. Voilà pour le Cameroun. Merci beaucoup.
Thank you very much, Minister. I know that many times in making changes, one of the major institutions or organizations that faces the most blame are the parliamentarians. And we have a number of us here today for this very important forum. What would you say is the challenge of the Parliament in the Cameroon for making the changes, positive changes, or having impeded some of the changes necessary?
C'est nécessaire, c'est vrai, le changement passe par le Parlement, mais pour le moment, je crois qu'on a encore beaucoup de mal à franchir cette étape-là. Je ne dis pas que c'est dans l'ADN des Camerounais, non, ce n'est pas dans l'ADN des Camerounais, mais on a encore, pour l'homosexualité, on a encore vraiment un caillou dans la chaussure. Il suffit seulement d'être soupçonné, vous êtes arrêté et emprisonné. Et quand vous arrivez en prison, évidemment, le traitement n'est pas commode, puisque les gens savent que vous avez été emprisonné pour cela et vous subissez encore tous les viols impossibles. C'est vraiment le caillou dans notre chaussure. Et les parlementaires, pour le moment, j'avoue qu'à l'Assemblée, j'arrive à rassembler très peu. Nous n'avons pas, je n'ai pas encore une capacité, une forte adhésion des parlementaires pour aller contre, parce qu'ils pensent que c'est quelque chose qui n'est pas naturel. Donc il y a encore toute une éducation là-dessus à refaire, mais je crois petit à petit ça va aller. C'est pour ça que nous demandons souvent aux uns aux autres de venir partager leurs expériences avec nous au Cameroun pour montrer qu'on peut vivre, parce qu'on pense que les gens font ça de manière... c'est des problèmes économiques, parce que c'est surtout ça que nous mettons en avant. On se dit qu'ici, l'homosexualité, c'est une question pour gagner de l'argent, mais que ce n'est pas pour leur plaisir personnel. Bon, mais ça va arriver, ça change un tout petit peu. On a la loi à changer, parce qu'on a une loi qui est encore là, et j'avoue qu'on n'arrive pas à trouver le quorum pour pouvoir changer cette loi qui dit que rien que le soupçon, même pas pris en flagrant délit, rien que le fait d'être soupçonné vous envoie en prison. Et puis pour vous faire soigner, comme je disais, il faut absolument, quand vous êtes homosexuel, il faut absolument, pour le traitement du sida, aller avec son partenaire. Il faut se présenter avec un partenaire. C'est ça aussi, les freins, c'est la grosse bataille que nous avons en ce moment.
Thank you. I'd pose the same question to the Honorable Hala Abou Ali, the Minister from Egypt.
Thank you. I'm an MP. I'm not a minister yet. So, accomplishments, I would say that nearly we have closed the gap in education and health discrepancies between women and men, which is something that is good. Still, the gap is big in employment and economic participation, and even the gap is even wider when we speak about political participation, though I'm here, but still we, like the gap is like 6% or 9% or something like that of political participation of women in Egypt. So in some, I could say that we have come a long way, yet discrimination is against women and girls, including violence against or gender-based violence, economic discrimination, reproductive health inequalities, and harmful traditional practices remains the most pervasive and persistent in Egypt and as forms of inequality. I would say that the main challenge to the Egyptian population is poverty and the inequalities persists in provision and access and the quality of SRH services. The care is very diversified between urban and rural areas, between different geographical areas, and within also different socio-economic status. And we still have infrastructure improvements to make, some more effective referral mechanisms in order to achieve the SRH services, and data. I would like to strengthen on the fact of data, following what Rachel and Natalie have been telling us. We do have data, but the access to the data is the most challenging. Egypt has launched, or actually launched the data for the census, electronic census in 2017, so which is a wealth of information that could also help us in measuring the accomplishment and measuring the effects of policies and laws that affects SRH in particular, and population and ICPD in general. So I really do encourage my fellow parliamentarians from the developing countries to push hard to have census and to make its data public, because it is very important to us, even as parliamentarians, to showcase and to be able to do the oversight job in a most effective manner. So information and data is really key to upgrading it, and I think that in that point, Egypt has been quite successful in that, more successful than SRH are, I guess. And however, the challenges for SRH is also cultural. I would say that we need to work more with men and young people, particularly the unmarried young people. Remains highly neglected population in Egypt in terms of access to our SRH services and in public education in general. This is like the unspoken taboo, and it's the thought of that it's better not to speak about those things so they will not happen, or which is really not very true on the ground. And so the prevalent attitude in Egypt is that the best way to protect children and youth from engaging in an unacceptable behavior such as pre-marital sex is to maintain their ignorance of such practices, so which limits the SRH education. People do think like that. Ulrika, here my neighbor is very like, I know, I've lived in Sweden myself I did my PhD in Sweden, so I've seen the two very different worlds, and I can understand that it's even difficult to perceive such an attitude, I guess. So we need to, as parliamentarians, really set priorities and push for them, make sure that the financing commitments are there, and to collaborate more on the national and the international level. And I guess that this conference does that. And I will leave with the note of data, 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 and I stop here. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much. I was indeed very delighted when I came into the session this morning to see a sort of a gender equality conference. I've been to conferences like these before, and there were more women outnumbering men. And I'm always of the concern that anytime we talk about gender-based violence, sexual and reproductive health and rights and freedoms, we cannot leave the men out. Men have to be an integral part in this to get the movement forward. And I'm very delighted to see a lot of men here in this forum this morning. I think it's a good sign for the further advancement of what we are trying to do in our world and in our region. I'll pose the question to the Honorable Martha from Mexico. Of what are you most proud of in terms of the SRHR in Mexico?
Bueno, primero me siento muy orgullosa del avance que ha tenido el feminismo en nuestro país. El feminismo ha acompañado, ha cuestionado, ha exigido a los gobiernos que se sostengan en la plataforma de acción de El Cairo. Y eso ha sido un gran avance y de lo que me siento muy orgullosa porque yo pertenezco a ese movimiento feminista. Déjenme decirles que en esta nueva era de Naciones Unidas, que nos permite hablar de las tres autonomías, de la autonomía física, de la autonomía económica y de la autonomía en la toma de decisiones, que son las tres autonomías a las que aspiramos las mujeres, yo me siento muy orgullosa en la autonomía física de haber creado en estos últimos 25 años la Ley General de Acceso a una Vida Libre de Violencias para las Mujeres, una ley que ha sido marco para muchos países latinoamericanos, incluso europeos, y donde hemos incorporado una figura muy importante que es el feminicidio. El feminicidio ha sido fundamental en México para avanzar en esta autonomía física y para visibilizar la violencia que se ejerce sobre nosotras por el hecho de ser mujeres y que no solamente quiere acosar, amenazar o sacar provecho, sino que su objetivo es matarnos, asesinarnos, eliminarnos. Y ese tema ya lo hemos sacado a flote y es un tema ahora que lamentablemente ha avanzado muchísimo y ha avanzado porque la gente ya lo denuncia, ya se investiga sobre un feminicidio, pero esto seguramente existía desde hace muchos años, pero la gente no lo llamaba como tal, sino simplemente como un homicidio y ya. Esto es en relación a la autonomía física. En relación a la autonomía política o en la toma de decisiones, quiero decirles que somos el segundo país que tiene un parlamento casi paritario. De 128 senadoras y senadores, tenemos 63 mujeres y 65 hombres. Es la primera vez en la historia de mi país que tenemos esta representatividad de mujeres. Y en la Cámara de Diputados, que son 500 hombres y mujeres, tenemos 241 mujeres y 259 hombres. Es decir, casi podemos hablar de congresos paritarios. Esto fue gracias a la... es una modificación que hicimos a la Constitución y llegamos a ser casi la mitad, no gratis. No llegamos a los partidos políticos y les dijimos queremos ser diputadas, queremos ser senadores. Claro que sí, pásale. No fue así. Fue a codazos y a sentenciazos, es decir, una serie de sentencias que tuvieron que emitir los poderes judicial. Y la tercera situación que quiero decirles, que es muy lamentable, y eso sí me da mucha preocupación en materia de derechos sexuales y reproductivos, es que se modifica. Mi país está integrado por 32 estados. En 17 estados se modificó la Constitución incorporando el derecho a la vida desde la concepción. Y esto provocó que una mujer que tuviera un aborto fortuito o un aborto accidental llegara a solicitar un servicio de salud por sangrado y en la camilla en lugar de ser atendida por el personal de salud, se le consideró sospechosa, criminal, mandaron llamar a los ministerios públicos y ahorita tenemos aproximadamente 4,246 mujeres acusadas en las cárceles de mi país por un lamentable delito que se inventaron de la manga los grupos de ultraderecha, que se llama homicidio en razón de parentesco. Y entonces le preguntas a esa mujer, ¿por qué estás aquí? Y te dice, por homicida, porque asesiné a mi hijo. Eso es increíble que haya sucedido en mi país. Vamos a liberar a estas mujeres porque todo lo que contribuye a la paz, el nuevo gobierno que va a llegar a México, tiene que contribuir desde la privación de la libertad. Y estas mujeres han sido privadas de la libertad, han sido acusadas de asesinas y han sido evidentemente privadas y además acusadas por un delito que no cometieron. Y esto lo quiero decir porque tenemos que trabajar sobre esto, no lo podemos permitir y por supuesto seguir trabajando en que la sociedad no criminalice el aborto, porque criminalizar el aborto es sostener la idea de que la maternidad es la única función obligatoria de las mujeres. Y entonces esta idea prevalece en las instituciones, prevalece en la sociedad, y entonces para lo único que servimos nosotras es para ser madres. Y nos parece que eso no es correcto en nuestra sociedad, que tenemos que tratar de manera a las mujeres de manera distinta, no somos incubadoras, somos sujetas de derechos y tenemos que ser tratadas como eso. Por eso vamos a trabajar en la liberación de estas mujeres, en la no criminalización del aborto, vamos a modificar el Código Penal Federal, porque existe en mi país la libertad de pedir, de solicitar el aborto en caso de violación. Eso existe en mi país. Pero con esta reforma que se hizo del derecho a la vida desde la concepción, ahora pues todas las mujeres que solicitan los servicios se les considera sospechosas. Y eso es muy lamentable, pero vamos a seguir trabajando en la educación, en la información sexual, porque los grupos de derecha más conservadores que se han clonado por todo el mundo y que traen mucho dinero, están trabajando en contra de nuestro movimiento, hablando de la ideología de género, diciendo que cómo vamos a educar sexualmente a las niñas y niños en las escuelas, que eso es obligación únicamente de las familias. Y por eso tenemos el embarazo adolescente que se ha incrementado como nunca en nuestro país. Muchas gracias. ¿Fui clara? ¿Sí fui clara?
Yes, very clear. Thank you. Very clear. Thank you very much. And our final question we pose to the Honorable Ermalena Muslim Hasbullah from Indonesia. What advice would you give to your government based on your experience and what you've learned from today? I think we've been having very good discussions.
From our colleague, how to make the more women parliamentarians. Yeah, I think this is a good experience how to push the women become the member of the parliaments. Yeah. Okay, and the question is, what can I advise my government? Because of first, no girl and women one left on behind. This must be tagline when I want to bring back to my country, and I make sure my government must put the proposal to support these ideas. I think this is simple, but this must be have big meaning for the girl and women in Indonesia. Not excuse for the Indonesia is too big. The population now is 260 million. The countries have too many islands, 17,000 islands. You can imagine how can we manage the women and girl at that time and the population separate in the different islands. But I think when the government put in the proposal, in the big proposal of the countries, this more easier for us to control is it on the track, because the function of the parliament put the regulation in the good track, and the secondly, is it budget there, money there to support this program, and the last one, we try to control day by day, look at the proposal still in the track or not. I think this is what the function I can bring back to my country. After we make, I think this is a very big homework to make a list from the different college from different country, that the success story must be the ideas what I can bring to my governments. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Your Honorable Ermalena. No, I missed someone. I missed Ulrika.
Yes.
I'd ask you the same question.
What advice I would give to my government?
Yes.
I have many advice for them, actually, and we don't even have a government yet. But I would say that...
You'll soon get there.
I would say the main focus, never, ever, ever forget who you are there to serve. You're there to serve the people. You are going to work for the benefit for the people, not for your own power.
Muy bien, muy bien.
So to do that, and as a parliamentarian, we always say, this is crazy. We live in a crazy world where, you have to tattoo the name in the back of your child, as we were told before, because you have to identify her when she's found after she's been raped. It's crazy world. And then we say someone should do something. But the population let us to decide. They let us to change. So I would say, not ask the government what the government can do. I would say, ask what you can do as a parliamentarian, because we are the legislator, we do have the budgeting, and we have the oversight. So I would say that we have to go to ourselves and think what we can do, and not ask the government what they can do in that. And I would say, use the power. And that is, change doesn't come easy. It's not a picnic. Change comes with, you have to be very brave, you have to have a lot of courage, and you're going to face some very hard discussions, because you're facing down very hard-minded, traditions, cultures, and religions, thoughts. So with that said, you're going to be in arguments, you're going to be in discussions, and you're going to be, so you need also close friends. So therefore, it's a good opportunity that we meet here, and I hope that you, each and everyone in this room, take the opportunity to network with the other colleagues, because we need each other to support each other, because we are in the forefront of the battle back home sometimes. The easy part is to convince yourself in this room what to do to improve gender equality. The hard part is to convince our colleagues back home to do the right thing. So that I would say, use your network to you. But if I'm going to give one advice to the Swedish government, that would be focus and prioritize, because Sweden, if in some way, sexual reproductive rights, health and rights are so sensitive issues in the global scene. And not so many members of governments or prime minister talk about them. So I would say, if not Sweden do it, who should do it? In a way, I know there are more countries doing it. I looked on Canada, I look on Austria, I look on Australia, Mexico. There are so many countries doing it now. But I think that we who have governments who said it's important issues, we should push our governments to even discuss these issues more globally and make a priority to it. And we said before, data collecting is very important, to have relevant data and to have access to data, and also to follow up and use the new technology. We have a population nowadays where young girls can see what rights they have in other countries. They're going to ask the politicians, they're going to ask us, why don't I have the same rights? Why can't I choose who to marry? You know, I can see they have the right to choose in other countries. So I think it's time for realizing that we cannot oppress people anymore. We have to give them the rights they need and they deserve.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Ulrika. I want to say a very special thank you to our esteemed panelists for such a rich discussion regarding the progress of what we have collectively achieved over the last 25 or so years. What we've heard this morning and into this afternoon have set the stage for, I see, a very good discussion on how we take the agenda forward. I would now open the floor for questions from anyone who want to raise a question to the panelists here at this forum this afternoon. I guess everybody is looking at the time, and I think they said that the close should, yes.
There.
Yeah. Yes, just identify yourself. The Congo, yes.
Go to the microphone. Is there a microphone?
Maybe they can form a line after the
Maybe
microphone?
you could, yes, hello? If you just form a line and raise your question, hey, come.
Honorable.
Here,
Là-bas.
in the microphone.
Oh, there's a mic. So we asking all the persons who want to ask a question, just form a line and, yes.
I think it would be easier if people formed a line at the two microphones there.
Va sur le micro. Le micro est là-bas.
There's one there and there's one there.
It would be easier for everyone if they would form lines behind the two microphones.
And if you just could identify the country or the organization to which you.
I thought I was.
Yeah, six before marriage. That's like,
Yes.
yeah, bueno.
You can prohibit. You can't.
The micro.
Costa Rica. Venga.
Ok. Ça fonctionne. Vas-y.
Ça fonctionne. It's working. It's 5 minutes gone already.
Yes.
Merci beaucoup de me donner la parole. Je suis l'honorable Charlotte Opimba, je viens du Congo-Brazzaville. Je voudrais ce matin féliciter tous les panélistes qui ont parlé, qui ont partagé l'expérience justement de nos continents respectifs. J'aimerais dans un premier temps justement compléter les propos de l'honorable Marie-Rose justement sur l'avortement. Je voudrais dire que certainement que nous avons des pesanteurs sur nos coutumes à propos de l'avortement, mais il faudrait également signaler qu'il y a un fait qui est positif, c'est celui justement de la planification familiale. Ça veut dire que les jeunes filles sont suffisamment éduquées pour justement planifier, choisir justement le mode de contraception pour aller justement vers des grossesses désirées. Donc je pense que nous, en tant que parlementaires, on a souvent participé justement à cette grande sensibilisation pour que les jeunes filles ont des grossesses désirées. Donc je pense que c'est également un aspect positif que nous devons encourager. J'aimerais justement m'appesantir sur ce que a dit l'honorable du Mexique. J'aimerais que mon pays suive l'exemple du Mexique. Vous savez, nous sommes 151 députés et il n'y a que 13 femmes qui sont élues. 13 sur 151 députés. Et nous sommes élus dans des conditions très difficiles. C'est vraiment mérité. On n'est pas député par hasard. Déjà, pour avoir son nom sur la liste, les partis politiques favorisent beaucoup plus les députés hommes. Donc, pour être parmi les 13, c'est déjà une lutte difficile. Donc, je voudrais sincèrement que vous partagez votre expérience pour qu'à notre tour, on puisse s'enquérir. Vous avez parlé justement presque de la parité au sein du gouvernement, au sein du Parlement. Mais quel est le mode opératoire? Comment sont élus les députés? Comment sont élues les femmes? Est-ce que c'est une élection au suffrage universel direct ou bien ce sont les chefs coutumiers qui opèrent pour que ces femmes soient véritablement soutenues? Vous avez parlé de la loi pour libérer les femmes qui sont victimes de violences. Est-ce que nous pouvons justement avoir le contenu de cette loi? Parce que vous savez, si c'est un grand moment du donner et du recevoir, les choses bonnes, nous devons en profiter pour vulgariser et puis peut-être copier aussi dans nos pays. Parce que vous savez que les problèmes de violence concernent en tout cas tous nos continents. Donc nous voulons vraiment s'enquérir de l'exemple du Mexique pour faire bouger les choses. Merci beaucoup.
Thank you.
Muchas gracias. Yo también quiero felicitarlas a todas por las intervenciones. Mi pregunta es específicamente para la diputada de Egipto. Bueno, Costa Rica es un país altamente religioso también, donde no tenemos un Estado laico. Somos de los pocos países de Latinoamérica que no tienen un Estado laico. Y la interferencia de las iglesias, porque son varias religiones, en temas de derechos de las mujeres es bastante alta. Tanto así que me atrevería a decir que tenemos una de las legislaciones más restrictivas en temas de aborto. Y ahora hay un nuevo debate para hacerlo más regresivo todavía. Me interesa conocer la experiencia de Egipto porque me asombró ver que esté permitido el aborto por violación, cosa que en Costa Rica estamos a años luz de ese debate. Entonces quería saber un poco cómo se dio la aprobación de esta enmienda legal y cómo influyó el tema de la religión para poder alcanzar esta permisión legal. Gracias.
Thank you.
Gracias, buenas tardes. Mi nombre es Josué Godoy, soy diputado de El Salvador y presidente del grupo de jóvenes parlamentarios de mi país. Primero, felicitarlas. Mi pregunta nace porque yo hace un par de meses presenté la primera iniciativa de ley de educación sexual y reproductiva en mi país, sin embargo fue mandada a archivo. Sabemos que existen muchos grupos conservadores que, independientemente de su causa, a la hora de escuchar cualquier iniciativa relacionada a los derechos sexuales y reproductivos, se unen como un bloque, un músculo, para detener o aplastar lo que sea, independientemente no lo entiendan o no lo comprendan. Y repiten el mensaje y ocupan plataformas como las iglesias para adoctrinar a las personas en contra de iniciativas. Entonces, ¿por qué también, si no se ha planteado, o cómo podemos articular a todas las organizaciones y a todos los sectores, por ejemplo, feministas, medioambientalistas, jóvenes, mujeres, para articularnos y tener también un músculo poderoso que impulse estas luchas que van en beneficio de nuestras poblaciones, sobre todo en países donde los índices de escolaridad son tan bajos como en América Latina? Muchas gracias.
Good afternoon, and thank you to all. I'm Larry Yonkoy, Member of Parliament from Liberia. Well, I'm happy this afternoon to understand that religion is no longer a barrier to the achievement of the goal of RCPD. As we've heard from a heavily Muslim country like Egypt and other countries around our bloc. But I was actually encouraged by Dr. Richard Snow of the UNFPA when she expanded on the issue of data collection and how it can be used to correct some of the wrongs that we are experiencing in our population problems. So my question is, what is UNFPA doing to support those countries that are in the 2020 round of population housing census? My question is against the background that my government has taken a bold step ensuring that our census is done in 2019. And she has showcased her willingness by putting some initial funds in the national budget. The process has started, but we are still far away from raising what we need in order to have this very important endeavor achieved. Thank you.
Good morning to all. I want to congratulate the panel. It was a very good panel. And I represent Portuguese Parliamentarian Group of Population and Development with MP from all political parties. And the commitment of the government is a strong supporters of SHRS for all and Agenda 2030. And like Sweden, I think Portugal, it's a good example too of sexual and reproductive rights. And we did a very important way in the last 40 years, and I think we can share with you all of our experience, and I think it's good experience. But I would ask you, what do you think regarding your very different experiences, if we are globally in risk of backlash on human rights, women's rights, and of course reproductive and sexual rights and democracies? Or instead, if you are in a changing time, in a positive way, besides all the difficulties? I would like to listen, because it's a panel with different perspectives, and I think it's important for us to understand the vision of all the continents and the countries in the situation of the world today. Thank you.
Thank you. Let me ask the persons who are asking questions, so please be very brief, because we have to end this session within the next 10 minutes, swiftly, so that we can have a response from the panelists. Thank you.
First of all,
thank you very much, Honorable Moderator.
Excuse me?
I am Honorable Usman Silla from the Gambia. I am the chairperson of the Select Committee on Health, Women and Children in my country. I have listened to the panelists and the presentations. They're very encouraging that, of course, we are facing challenges, but at least there are some progress registered. I'm coming from a country, I just want to say that legislation is not enough. I am from a country where we used to have a very difficult political dispensation. There was a time when particularly FGMC was a taboo. The then president made a pronouncement that no one should talk about FGMC because it is really challenging our culture. Well, the culture, I don't know what he means by culture. So that was the difficult situation that women groups, civil society found itself, those that were advocating for an end to FGMC. All of a sudden, because of pressure from the world, he was facing too much pressure because of the way he was running the country. He was a dictator. So in order to appease the pressure, particularly from the West, he made a pronouncement that he's banning FGMC. And then within a space of 2 months, there was legislation banning FGMC. So that was progress. It was not done out of the recognition that women have the right to their bodies. No one should perform anything on their bodies without their consent. It was not done because of that. It was done because of political pressure. So you can see the intention. Of course, that's progress. Now we are in a new dispensation where the law is there. There were 2 cases, 2 prosecutions. They had to be dropped for lack of evidence. But because of the lack of political will of the present dispensation. What I just want to say is that us parliamentarians, we need to assert our authority. I don't know other dispensations, but in the Gambia, we can do anything. We have the power. The only power that we don't have is to create human beings, but we can do anything within that country. We have the powers. We have authority over the executive. It's just action that we need. Now, the point that I want to make now is that political representation. When we are talking about political representation, there should be gender balance, but we're talking about quality. In the Gambia, what we have is that women go for political representation. It's elections that we do, that they contest. But the women of quality are afraid to enter the fray because they don't choose them. At the end of the day, we only had few women legislators who were elected, and they are not of quality. So what I'm saying is Gambia is on the verge of coming up with a new constitution. I want the advice of all the panelists. How do we ensure that there is quality representation? Do we need proportional as well as elective representation to ensure that quality, not only women, but men of quality are in parliament? So that's what I want to ask, and I want, if I can get it from all panelists. Thank you very much.
Let me take the lady at the microphone in the back, please, and I'm taking two more, and then we have the panelists to conclude.
Thank you. I'm a member of the Turkish Parliament. My name is Ceyda. As a result of the implement social policies, the Gini coefficient of Turkey, which was 0.440 in 2002, decreased to 0.405 in 2017. The life expectancy at birth of an average Turkish citizen has increased to 78 in 2018, from 72.5 in 2002. The population covered by the health insurance increased from 70% to the 2002 to 99.7 to 2018. In recent years, our country has implemented regulatory policies in the field of mother and child health care investment, in youth and expansion of educational opportunities. Even during global financial crisis of the last decade, by increasing public investments to the society, I want to give some of the numbers to you.
Excuse me, you have to be. Just ask the question so that we can have the panelists to respond. And I'm asking, please, for the other persons who want to ask the question, we have to end this session within 5 minutes.
The most important point we have to discuss at the ICPT meetings, one of the things we need to talk about the wars is the most affected people are women and little girls. In order to prevent that, the whole world needs to say stop to the wars. The budget that we allocate for the wars could be used for women and the little girls, also for women fertilization. We need to see the women who lose their babies and the babies who lose their mothers, whom died today in Palestine and Syria and Myanmar. I want to say thank you.
Thank you. Let me ask the representative from Mexico to briefly respond to the question.
Sí.
The question.
Bueno, la verdad no, me perdí un poco en la pregunta, pero yo diría tres cuestiones importantes. La paridad es mucho más barata que la desigualdad. Ganan más los países con la paridad que con la discriminación, con el machismo o con la desigualdad. Evidentemente es más barato y es más beneficioso para todos los países la paridad. Pero quiero decir algo para todas mis compañeras parlamentarias, con todo cariño y con todo respeto. Presencia de mujer no ha garantizado conciencia de género. Es decir, hemos ocupado puestos y la vida de las mujeres no ha cambiado. Y si somos parlamentarias, tenemos que hacer que la vida de las mujeres termine.
I'm terribly sorry to be the party pooper of this panel, but we really do have to end this session now. It's been absolutely fascinating. Thank you, all the members of the panel, for answering the questions in such great detail and encouraging us in what you've done. And thank you, the audience, for all the work you've been doing, and apologies to the people who haven't managed to get in or get answers. But please keep on trying. You're doing a wonderful job. Thank you.